No.
Good evening, all the participants. I'm Aarti Bansal, Secretary to the Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting. I welcome you all to this webinar on fraud detection and prevention, learning from the past, with our esteemed faculty, C. Naval Bajaj, our Chairman, C. Rajendra Kumar P., and our Vice Chairman, C. Charanjot Singh Nanda, as well as the moderator, C. Mohit Jain. Now I request our Chairman to interact with you all.
Thank you, Secretary to the Board, CA Aarti Bansalji. Very esteemed Vice Chairman and our mentor of the committee, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda. Expert faculty and a well-known person in the internal audit fraternity, Naval Bajajji, the young moderator Mohit Jain, whom we all see in the screen, Arun Agarwal from the board, Nisarg, who is giving the technical support. As all of you are aware, friends, the board on every Wednesday conducts a webcast on certain important topics. We are here before you with one more important topic and one more expert faculty. In fact, it is the endeavor of the board that we must take the internal audit to the nook and corners of the country. It doesn't matter how many members attend these programs. It does not matter what is the audience. But then what matters is if there are even 100 members, 200 members who are attending this program, internal audit as a subject has reached them. So continuing our foray into the practices of internal audit, into the practices of this sunrise industry, it is my proud privilege to welcome CA Naval Bajajji, the expert faculty today, who is going to interact with all of us. Our very esteemed Charanjot Singh Nandaji, who has just emerged from an important meeting in New Delhi, our Vice Chairman on the paper, but actually a mentor of this board. Sir, I thank you very much for being a continuous guide to this particular board and making it vibrant. CA Mohit Jain deserves our appreciation for accepting to be on the screen, moderating this particular session, and also educating himself. The Secretariat, headed by Aarti Bansalji, who is seated here, she has been a great source of strength for all of us, and a dedicated support from her has charged the board this year too, so that we can take up new assignments, bringing out standards and publications. We are actively working on many publications. Recently, we launched 2 publications, which is there before the members, which is there for the download to the members on our website. So friends, without wasting much time, may I request CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji to give his address and also guide us for the future. Over to you, Nandaji.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The chairman of the board, GST man, C. Rajendra Kumar, the very esteemed faculty of the day, C. Naval Bajaj, the moderator of the day, C. Mohit Jain, secretary to the board, C. Aarti Bansal, officer Arun Agarwal, Nisarg, the technical support, and more importantly, members who have come here to understand the intricacies of the topic. The topic today is webinar on fraud prevention and detection, learning from the past. Whenever the control environment starts getting weak, it is the breeding ground for frauds. And very importantly, you have to understand that how prevention of fraud and detection of fraud helps an organization to go on a larger perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, internal audit encompasses so many activities, and largely it is a management function to empower the management to serve the stakeholders and, more importantly, the regulators and the government. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just want to put across that working in the right direction is a thought process which comes from within. You have to tune your mind to create structures which are indomitable. I am reminded of Shahid Bhagat Singh, who once exclaimed, "Kuch is kadar meri fitrat se waqif hai meri kalam." Kuch is kadar मेरी फितरत से वाकिफ है मेरी कलम, इश्क लिखना भी चाहूं तो इनकलाब लिखा जाता है, इश्क लिखना भी चाहूं तो इनकलाब लिखा जाता है. When you go on to the right direction, you find people who have tuned their minds to success. The basic purpose of holding these webinars is to ensure that all of us are put to the right perspective. We have the best in the industry who could ultimately drive us to excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an excellent faculty who has been contributing always for the cause of this profession. Mr. Naval Bajaj, in spite of his busy schedule, whenever I said anything, I can tell you on Sunday afternoon, I gave a call to Mr. Bajaj. I said, sir, Wednesday, you have to take a session. I was in Singapore. He was busy. He said, Mr. Nanda, when it comes to the profession, when it comes to chartered accountancy, I will leave aside my important jobs. I'll work overtime, but I'll be there. And there he is. A brief profile of CA, Naval Kishore Bajaj. Mr. Bajaj is a fellow chartered accountant, a certified internal auditor, a certified information system auditor, and a forensic accountant, having experience of over 17 years in the field of risk advisory, internal audits, IFC, JSOX, forensic investigations, and enterprise risk management. Currently, he leads the activities related to corporate audit, Japanese SOX, internal financial controls, and enterprise risk management for India region covering India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka for a Japanese multinational organization, Yokogawa India Limited, which is listed at Tokyo Stock Exchange. He has worked with multiple industries such as industry automation engineering, automobiles, IT, ITES, telecom, FMCG, and foreign exchange. He has worked in multicultural environments with professionals hailing from 9 countries across India, Japan, Europe, Asia, and US. He has experience of setting up of new audit functions and also drive the change management, which is very important within the organization where he has worked so far. He has successfully implemented ERM frameworks, IFC frameworks, and also designed management controls for management of dealers related activities in the past. He has recently been awarded as one of the India's 20 most influential audit leaders by Transformers Forums. He has also co-authored a book titled Fraud Prevention and Detection Through Internal Audits, published by II India, and that is exactly his topic. He has also contributed 2 chapters in the internal audit subject course material of Institute of Company Secretaries of India for CS final students. He has been a part of the erstwhile expert study groups of ISCI, which formulated and revised the standards on internal audits and forensic accounting and investigative standards. He, on voluntary side, serves as president of Bangalore chapter of Bharatiya Vitt Salahkar Samiti, a leading think tank of financial professionals which advises government on various policy matters of economy, corporate governance, taxation. Naval has also contributed as Board of Studies guest member in review of Master of Commerce syllabus of Jyoti Nivas College. He helped to include topics related to audits, internal audits, and enterprise risk management in the latest syllabus. He has so many things, but looking at the paucity of time, I would stop here. But I can assure you one thing, that Mr. Bajaj has a deep insight into the subject, and he shall be able to effectively gauge us towards how we could create our thought process with respect to prevention of frauds, and more importantly, detecting them and stopping them wherever they find any red flag. Over to Mr. Rajendra Kumar before we invite Mr. Naval Bajaj for his discourse. Mr. Chairman, the dais is all yours.
Thank you, Charanjot Singh Nandaji, our Honorable Vice Chairman. Very nicely you have put in and also connected the topic of this day, of which Naval Bajaj is an expert with his great expertise and acumen that he possesses. I'm confident that all our audience are in for a good treat today. CA Mohit Jain ji, would you like to briefly give any opening remarks before I request Naval Bajaj ji to commence?
Good evening to all the galaxy of intellectuals in the webinar. Our Honorable Chairman, C.A. Rajendra Kumar sir, our Honorable Vice Chairman, C.A. Charanjot Singh Nanda sir, our speaker, eminent personality, C.A. Naval Bajaj sir, and the audience. I'm over here to welcome our eminent personality in the webinar on the topic fraud prevention. Internal Audit Board is regularly conducting the webinars on different topics on every Wednesday. And hopefully it would be the fruitful for our worthy audience to find the new learnings and new guidance under the leadership of our chairman C. Rajendra sir and vice chairman C. Charanjot Singh Nanda sir. Today, our topic that we have the webinar on the topic is fraud prevention and detection, learning from the past. Internal Standard Board is regularly updating the standards and providing the different guidance to the modules and the different types of the material regularly on time. In this webinar, we are going to learn about from the past experiences from our eminent speaker, that is Naval Bajaj sir, and hopefully it would be the beneficial and the great learning for the audience, those who have joined today. On behalf of my internal accounting board, I am thankful to the learners, those who have joined the webinar by today, and hopeful it would be the value addition for all the worthy audience. Over to Rajendra sir. Sir, please.
Thank you, Mohit Jain ji. Naval Bajaj ji, we are all for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Sir, Rajendra Kumar ji, Vice Chairman Sir, Charanjot Singh Nanda ji, Aarti ji, the Secretary, Mohit Jain ji, the Moderator, and all the audience listening to me right now. It is indeed an honor whenever I come to address the audience, the chartered accountants, the fellow chartered accountants on the platform of Institute of Chartered Accountants. Because the feeling that one gets by contributing to your own institute is always different as compared to whenever you are speaking in other forums. So as Nandaji rightly mentioned, I always try that I never miss such opportunities, because it is that institute, it is that mother which has given so much to all of us, and therefore we should never miss it. And I would like to thank Chairman Sir and Vice Chairman Sir for giving me this opportunity to share this topic, which is very close to my heart. I feel that the entire profession is right now to some extent under question by certain things which are happening. So my entire deliberation of today is going to be structured about what internal auditors can do about it. So, fraud is such a topic that, you can keep talking about it for 2 days, full 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, it won't end, and it will keep, the story continues. But what I'm trying to do today is I have picked up certain themes which are more relevant, which are more recent, and trying to build some, some storylines around it, which could be the takeaways for the audience today. And I must also say that I've been speaking about the similar topic on different other forums also. I have spoken in a national conference recently from the Institute of Internal Auditors, then at the Asia level also, similar topic. And, I'm trying to make it as wider as possible so that, the right level of awareness is spread through. Now, with your permission, I would like to make my presentation visible to the audience. Is my screen visible?
Very much, Mr.
Yes,
Bajaj.
sir.
Please,
Yes,
very
yes.
much.
So as we, rightly pointed out by our moderator, the today's topic is fraud prevention and detection, learning from the past, right? So let's go further. So I wanted to take help from my colleague for today, Mohit Jain ji, because I can't see the exact comments or inputs from the audience because of technological limitations. But I would like to know the expectations of the audience here in terms of what do they expect out of this session. And Mohit ji, if you are able to get certain comments and certain themes, I am requesting the audience here to put in their comments or pointers, and Mohit ji will communicate them to me, and then we'll take it forward. So I'll just stop for a few seconds and wait for those comments, Mohit ji, from your side.
All the worthy members, those who have joined the today's webinar, are requested to please mention your question through the chat box so that the same question can I read out to the honorable speaker of the day. And as per his convenience, he can start it from the what you would like to learn from the today's session. So I request to all the worthy members that what do you expect from the today's session to please mention in the chat box. Thank you. Sir, question number 1 that we have got from the Natarajan Subramaniam sir. How to prevent a fraud in which the employees are deeply involved?
Great. So we will talk about employee fraud. Yes.
Still I have received only the one question. You are requested to the worthy audience to please mention your question and expectation from the today's webinar so that it can be started accordingly. Thank you.
It's basically, I want to know the expectation where I should focus more my deliberation. That's it.
Okay,
So
sir.
employee
Fine.
fraud is definitely covered.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start. Just a moment, I'll just adjust this. Yeah. So friends, so talking about white collar crimes, right? There are certain quotations that I really love, and that's why I put them here. One of the very good quotation is that remember that art, statistics, credits, and debits are in the eye of the manipulator. So it's a funny way of saying that it's very easy to manipulate the financial numbers, although they are supposed to be facts, they are supposed to be very objective, but there are possibilities, there are ways where they can be manipulated. With that note, let's go forward. So I would like to start from the basics. What are corporate frauds? Because we are all talking about internal audit. So internal audit will be mostly related to corporate frauds. Internal audit's role will be basically to mitigate the risk of corporate frauds. So the 4 general categories of these frauds are: one is corruption, second is asset misappropriation, third is financial misreporting, and fourth is fraud with the other stakeholders. Now, what I've tried to do is I have tried to basically bifurcate these categories into one more category, which is an overarching category of blue font and a red font. The red points or the red font frauds are the one which directly threaten the existence of the organization. They invite personal consequences to the board, to the senior management, to the audit committee, as well as to the auditors. As you could see, bribery, kickbacks, regulatory non-compliances, the intentional non-compliances, inflation of or cooking up of the books, basically. Then any tax fraud, any money laundering, any consumer related frauds. They're all the points, which are directly threatening the existence itself of the organization, the business continuity itself, the going concern itself. On the other hand, the other frauds which are mentioned in the blue font or the blue color font, they are also important. But normally, if you see during your conversations with the management, the blue ones are always in the focus of management because they are the ones which do not impact them. They are the ones which they want internal auditors to find and detect and mitigate. But my friends, as internal auditors, we cannot ignore both the categories. Both are important. One may be focus of management, but then regulators have focus on red points, which are much more riskier and much more impactful than the blue ones. So one of the common mistakes I have seen, over the internal audit programs, various organizations, I keep talking to various people, is to lose focus on these, regulatory focus items. So we should not lose focus on that. So this is one learning, one key takeaway of today from my side, learning from the past, how to focus, where to focus. So I think we have to focus where the risk is more. I'll move forward. Now, having said that, this slide which I presented recently, this was made by me some 2-3 years back. But now things have further changed. 3 years is a good time period for another set of frauds to get into the picture, get into the focus. If we try to read the newspapers, if we try to read the various articles that are getting published or what is happening around the world, especially in India, false regulatory filings are the biggest category of frauds which are being caught by the regulators these days. And one single common reason for that is that regulators have really invested very highly and very well, I would say, into data analytics. Sometimes I feel that the capability or the tools that are now available with the regulators to compare the data that is available to them already and get some red flags, get some pointers out, is much more than the individual corporates, which was not the case 10 years ago. So definitely things have moved to a direction where regulators are much more equipped than the corporates now, because they anyways had much more information than corporates. Yes, Mohit, you want to say something?
A lot of questions have received, inquiries have received. Can I narrate?
Yeah, please, Mohit. Please tell me.
There's a respected member, Nipun Chandrakanta Makwana, has asked 2 to 3 scenarios to identify red flags in any specific audit areas of observation.
Okay. How to identify red flags?
Chirag Garg is asking one question. As an internal auditor, how should we start evaluation from fraud perspective?
Okay.
Our senior member, K. Sudhakaran, is asking, please elaborate on real life incident took place in Indian scenario.
Sure, I have that in my presentation.
Our member is asking, Paritosh Sonpal from Vadodara, expectation is all about case studies of past frauds that sir has investigated, that yourself has investigated, sir.
I don't have in the presentation, but I can talk about it. Okay.
Our one more member is asking, Nishit Seth, I think, sorry if I pronunciation is wrong. Nitish, I think, Nitish said, is how to know the unknown fraud.
Unknown fraud.
Yes.
Okay.
One
Typically
more.
how to detect, right?
Yes.
Okay.
One more senior member is Juhi Virvani is asking one question. What are the ways we can link the different data analytics with fraud?
Okay.
One more senior member is asking one question. Sameer Manek, techniques and tools used for preventing frauds through internal audit.
Sure.
Our one member is respected member is Romi Khanna is asking one question. What all steps auditor can take to prevent frauds? How is AI beneficial to us?
Very good question. Okay.
Our one respected member Sanjeev Kumar from New Delhi is asking one question: how to prevent fraud and how to detect fraud in day-to-day activities. And he is asking one more question: how to make early detection of fraud.
Okay.
One more question from the respected senior member Sanjay Sakharam Rane is asking what management or regulators are expecting from the auditors in the area of fraud detection.
Sure, it is covered already. Okay.
The last question from our member, respected member Umesh Gore is asking, as it said, history repeats itself. My expectation is to know about the various corporate frauds happened in the past and controls implemented post such frauds.
Okay.
So till I have read out all the questions that our respected members have asked about the audience, and I'm looking the next further more questions from the worthy audience to please mention in your chat box for the expectation from our worthy eminent speaker. Thank you, sir.
Sure, Mohit. So sure. So friends, I was talking about, the trends which have now changed. So the corporate frauds, which is a permanent kind of category of all kind of frauds that are happening around, they have now, the focus has shifted to false regulatory filing. As I was saying, that regulators have invested a lot in data analytics, data automation, data comparison. They have a lot of artificial intelligence tools implemented, which are able to bring to the regulators' notice any kind of non-compliance, especially on the tax side, especially on the non-compliance to any, Companies Act requirement or RBI requirements, etc. GST refund claim, etc. Also, regulators are able to find out based on the data analytics tool that they have implemented. So what is the message that I'm trying to give here? The message that I'm trying to give here is, if regulator is already prepared to catch us or catch the mistakes of a company or catch the intentional deeds of a particular corporate, then it is better that internal auditors point out the lacunas in the existing processes, in the existing systems, in the existing tools, which enable mitigation of this risk before these are found by the regulators. This goes without saying, actually. The second second trend which I see personally is forgery of electronic documents, because electronic documents are becoming more and more in usage, especially post-COVID. A lot of people started using digital signatures, e-signatures, and Outlook emails have been in place for a long time, but they have been misused in multiple organizations to forge certain kind of audit evidences. So we will talk about that. So this is another trend. Then thirdly, cyber frauds against the companies. And I'm not talking about cyber frauds against, the cyber frauds which are happening with, based on ransomware or, the kind of fraud that we are talking about on daily basis. But a lot of cyber frauds, especially ransomware attack, where, for example, happening in a manufacturing setup, and especially where operational technology and information technology are getting integrated. And we will talk about it later. But basically what I'm trying to say here is where the manufacturing technology is now getting integrated to the cloud, is now getting integrated, the information is now getting integrated to the cloud, getting to the mobiles of the senior management, then the risk of cyber fraud has increased much more, as compared to those situations where the manufacturing setup or manufacturing systems or information system is totally different and working in isolation and not connected to the outside world. But that is no longer an option, because from an efficiency point of view, from an information decision point of view, everything is getting integrated, and therefore the risk of cyber fraud has increased a lot. Last but not the least, today we are going to talk about frauds using application coding, algorithms, hidden charges, hidden data manipulations, etc., which happen in algorithms. Now, internal auditors cannot ignore any of the new categories also. Friends, this is a quick recap of, what is a fraud under Indian Contract Act. I will not get into the detail, but the key message is any act which is done with an intent to receive is basically a fraud. Then there are definitions about fraudulently in Indian Penal Code. We have definition in 447. We have another definition in 448. I think the 447 fraud definition is known to everyone, but 448 also I wanted to specifically highlight. Section 448 of the Indian Companies Act clearly says that if in any return, report, certificate, financial statement, prospectus statement, or other document required by or for the purposes of any of the provisions of this act, all the rules made thereunder, any person makes a statement which is false in any material particulars, knowing it to be false, or which omits any material fact, knowing it to be material, then it is to be treated as a fraud. So even if you have filed something which is known to be false, it is a fraud under section 448 of the Indian Companies Act 2013. So this is very important. Why? Because I am relating it back to the regulatory filing related frauds that I spoke about. In this slide, what I'm trying to explain here is that frauds are happening everywhere, and all sorts of frauds are happening. And this is again a slide which I prepared, a few years back. It's not a latest slide. While in India, you see that, auditor was arrested in a Ponzi investigation. At other places in Netherlands, you see that audit can never be zero risk because auditors are human too. And these kind of articles are getting published in the newspapers. In England, we see a few years back that, government is talking about how to make audit more effective. Then again, in South Africa, we see that South Africa's corporate fraud problem is caused by lack of internal audit regulation. This was the view of expert way back in 2019. So fraud and internal audit are linked across the world. It is not only about India, and it is not about, Indian regulations anymore. This is the key message I wanted to give. And what is happening? Now, regulators are questioning directors and statutory auditors more and more. But yes, internal auditors are also getting questioned by the audit committee, by the board. And we cannot shrug away from our responsibility. World is already talking about reforms, as I mentioned. And auditors' key defense is exercising due professional care and diligence. Now, how do you demonstrate that we exercise due professional care and diligence? This is the key question. The first and foremost thing that the auditors can demonstrate that, okay, I have exercised due professional care and diligence is by following certain level of standards. Now, there are only 2 standards that I am aware about related to internal audit. Standards on internal audit have been revised by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. I was lucky to be part of that expert study group which did it. And if an auditor adopts those standards in the company under the approval of the audit committee or the board as applicable to your organization and follows it verbatim, later on, even if a fraud happens, but if you are able to demonstrate that those standards were followed by the internal audit department or relevant internal auditor, you are still safe. You can still say, I have exercised due professional care and diligence because at least you are following a standard. But the people who are not following a standard, how will they demonstrate? It will become very subjective. And therefore, I always advise all the internal auditors, especially the chief audit executives, especially the heads of audits, especially the people who are empaneled as Section 138 internal auditors in various companies, to adopt, to recommend under Section 138, under the methodology part of internal audit, to the audit committee or to the board, that we will follow these standards. I have done it for my company and it has benefited. I'll go next. Now, let's talk about why do we fail. I think there was a question about, why do we fail? Why it is happening? So we'll talk about it. What could be the possible reasons? So based on my analysis, there are multiple reasons. Firstly, the nature of concealment and misrepresentation associated with the fraud is complex. So, it is, when we read the news, it looks so obvious that, okay, why could these people not have found it? But there are complexities around it. There are so many transactions that are happening, huge level of transactions. There are so many segregation. There are so many people involved in the process. No one is having end-to-end visibility about the process. Then there could be hierarchical issues, authority issues, and so on. So there is always a situation. There is always an undercurrent. There is always a reason why a fraud happens which is not found. And the majority of the reason is that the entire environment, entire transaction, the way it is done is pretty complicated. It's not so easy to find. And relevant to that is that effective red flags integration has not happened in the processes. When the processes were made, they were built, or when they were reviewed, the red flags were not kept in mind, the usual red flags. Then, fraudsters' familiarity with the control environment is much more than internal auditors. He knows the process, he or she knows the process in and out. Internal auditors go there occasionally, every 2 years, every 3 years, or maybe even every year. And the internal auditors will also keep rotating. So the level of familiarity that fraudster has with the control environment is much more than the auditor. So their ability to conceal the fraud is higher, definitely. And on top of it, management also have emotional response to fraud sometimes. Sometimes they'll, you will go with a red flag and management will say, it's okay, it happens. This is he might have made a mistake, have you checked this? Have you checked that angle? Have you checked that angle? So based on that also, sometimes to find, I think there was a very relevant question, how to find fraud quickly. So this is also one of the reasons why we are not able to find or detect a fraud quickly, because management itself does not feel it so, does not work like that. The culture of the organization is not so. Then internal audit sample sizes are too small. This is changing with now technology coming into place. AI, ML tools are also in place. Earlier also data analytics tools were in place. So this is changing with time. But then there are a lot of organizations still whose data is not so structured, whose data is not so well integrated with other workforce systems, and not so easily available to the internal auditors, wherein they can find out these gaps. And therefore, still a lot of internal auditors have been depending upon samples, and they are too small to find frauds. And then fraud will be concealed in some excessive large figures. Now, auditors' lack of familiarity and awareness about fraud also is one of the reasons, and insufficient level of professional skepticism is one of the main reasons. These are the reasons in my knowledge. In addition to that, there are scope limitations. So sometimes management itself will not allow you to audit certain things which are really tricky, where could be gaps. Then internal auditors are a lot of times we are predictable, So what has been taught to us since beginning, since childhood? I mean, childhood means when you start the profession, when you start your internal audit journey, you have been always told to be transparent. You have always been told that, please explain the aim or the objective with which you are asking a data. So if the other person is a fraudster, then definitely that person gets a very easy alarm that, okay, now auditor is getting into the area where I don't want him to get into. On the other hand, like if you compare it with a forensic investigation, because I have done some forensic investigations also, there you are going with a single mindset that yes, the fraud may have happened. And you are not at all taking data from the accused. You are taking data from other sources. So it is much easier to prove a fraud in a forensic investigation than internal audit. Not that I am advocating that internal auditors should become like forensic investigators, but this is one of the main reasons. And we need to all understand it and appreciate it. Then auditor's bias. If I have reviewed one particular area, like 2 years back, I will generally have a bias that, okay, this will be the situation in this particular area. And after 2 years also, I may end up overlooking a particular process or chain point or a data point, which was okay 2 years back, but it may have been abused now. So we have to be conscious about this. Then time and budget constraints. At the end of the day, everything is linked to time and the financial budget. And the usual tactic of a lot of auditors is to keep delaying the data. Do not provide the data till the end time. Provide it at the last minute, so that auditor is not able to spend too much of time. They see it at the overall level and close the chapter. So eventually, these are all things which I'm talking about right now. They're all very familiarly known to all the internal auditors who have been doing internal audit for ages now. But if we have them at the back of our mind, then if we are conscious about these limitations, we will definitely overcome these limitations. And this is why I have put this slide up. So another key message, keep these things in mind. Do not allow auditors' bias. Even if you have time and budget constraint, but if you have, using your professional skepticism, if you feel that something is wrong, do not close the audit. Ask for extension, ask for more budget. Do not cut the corner. Do not depend too much on sample sizes. And I'm sure people like me who are in the leadership positions also have a role to play. Because if someone comes to me and asks for that extension, I will always give that extension. But that has to be the case with most of other people. Now, friends, last but not the least, is the reason of not learning from the past. Recently, I was talking to a set of professionals, and I asked them about some popular frauds which have happened in the recent past, in the last 2 to 3 years. Everyone was aware that some fraud has happened, but none of them could tell me specifically what has happened, what were the red flags that were missed, and what, as internal auditors, we could have done better if we were in that place. Or as internal auditor, based on the learning of that fraud which has happened in other organization, which is available in the public domain, what is it that I have gone back to my organization and rechecked whether my organization is not lacking on that account? How many of us have done that? If you do a survey, not even 20%. And I'm saying 20% based on, the group that I was talking to, not even 20% raise their hand that yes, I have done it. So this is the key reason why we do not improve. And therefore, the session's name, Learning from the Past. Friends, now we will analyze few examples. I think some of the audience members had an expectation that we should cover certain case studies. And that is what I'm doing, 2 to 3 case studies today in a very short, and very summarized manner. Let's talk about Wirecard fraud. What was Wirecard fraud? What was Wirecard? Wirecard is a German payments company which collapsed in 2020. $4 billion money was owed to its creditors when it collapsed. Collapsed means it filed bankruptcy. And the company had been inflating its financial statements and falsely representing presence of cash balances that did not exist. It sounds very familiar, right? All the accounting frauds have either inflation of the inflating the revenue, or mismanaging the cash flows, etc., etc., etc. So the same story continues. We don't learn from the past. Let's talk a little more about what happened. So the business of the company is that it was a leading e-payment processor in Germany and also many other countries, many countries, many continents, I should say. It was founded in 1999 by Markus Braun, who served as CEO until his resignation in June 2020. So it was not someone else managing it. It was his own baby. He had created it. Still, he ended up doing a fraud there. At its peak, the company was valued at $28 billion and was among the 30 listed companies, 30 most prestigious listed companies on Germany's prestigious DAX stock index. It's not easy to get listed there. I mean, very respectful companies were supposed to be listed there in that, and that too in top 30. But what happened? The media and the whistleblowers alleged that the company had faked its sales to inflate the revenue and the profits. Company defended itself very aggressively. They hit back at critics using media, using channels, using their PR mechanism. They even filed a suit against Financial Times, which was the first one to break the story against them. Then later on, because it was a whistleblower complaint, a KPMG investigation was called for, doing a forensic audit. And it came out with a bombshell news. KPMG reported $1 billion of cash was missing. $1 billion. And apart from that, a lot of advances that were shown in the books that, okay, we have advanced this much of money to so and so parties, could not be traced where they have gone. EY, which was the statutory auditor for more than a decade, refused to sign the accounts based on this investigation report. And then they also put a question on 1.9 billion of the balances, $1.9 billion. After that, CEO resigned once the banks confirmed that there are no such balances, of course. And he was arrested. Company filed insolvency, and still some litigation is going on against the statutory auditors also, against the company also, against the officers also. But that is not the focus of discussion today. That is why I summarized it very shortly. The focus of discussion today is what we can learn as internal audit professionals from this case. Whatever information I'm sharing here is available in public domain. So, what are the red flags that were missed? First of all, the fictitious transactions involving a complex web of subsidiaries and partner companies was there. If someone tried to study the books of account of Wirecard, no one will understand how the transactions are moving and where it is moving. The moment we see such a complex structure, the moment as internal auditors we see that such a complex structure has been created, which is not understandable clearly, and which no one within the company is able to explain to us, that is the biggest red flag for me. Things should be kept simple and clear to make sure that frauds do not happen. My friends, wherever there is a complexity, there is a possibility of a fraud. Not that there will be fraud, but it's a big red flag. So I always believe that keep the transactions clear, keep the transactions simple, keep your agreements simple, keep your related party agreements simple. Don't complicate, don't mess around with different kind of transactions under one agreement, multiple kind of transactions with same entity. No one knows what payment is getting, what payment you are receiving, what payment you are giving. So the moment it gets complicated, there is a possibility of misuse and there is a possibility of fraud. The second red flag which was missed was revenue from third-party acquirers, that is the businesses that processed payments for Wirecard as a third party globally, they amounted to half of the reported revenues. The moment they amounted to half of the reported revenues, it's okay. I mean, there can be a business model. But then what was statutory auditor doing? And what was internal auditor doing? Where were the internal controls to check who are these third parties? If there are, if it was of 1%, 2%, 5%, you could have ignored it. If it is 50% of your revenue, how can you ignore the third party checking? Later on, during the investigations, it was found that some addresses of these parties were at family home, one was a bus company, and so on. Again, something not very unique, right? The same old story. In so many frauds, we would have seen it. So what was missed? The basic checks. Then backdated contracts to inflate revenue have been done. Now, why would you allow in your process backdated contract? Financial reporting was also a red flag. So in this company, the way they used to report their financial numbers was always mixed. Various segments were mixed into one, so that their results were never comparable to the peers. And eventually the analysts and the other people who are supposed to, because it's a listed company, so many analysts will be looking at the financial numbers and then giving a valuation to it, based on which mutual funds and other institutional investors will be investing in this such company. So what I had read in the which is available in the public domain, that analysts had tough time analyzing the financial numbers of this company, comparing it with the peers, and they had to do their own homework, their own working. But company was never coming out clearly with a very clear and very easily understandable financial numbers, which could be easily compared to the industry peers. Is that not a red flag? If I am advising, if I am advising institutional investor, I will say never invest in such a company. Although there are so many other factors to be considered, but this is certainly a red flag. As internal auditors, can't we look at in our internal financial controls how the reporting is happening? What is the quality of that reporting is happening? We can certainly look at that. But do we look at that? Are all of these red flags which I have written in this this slide here, we need to go back and check in our organization whether any of such things are existing, and if they are existing, do not panic, but at least try and resolve these problems one by one. That is the key message I want you to take. Mohiji, if there is any question so far, I would like to answer that. Otherwise, I'll move to the next case study.
Sir, you are requested to please proceed further. I'll let you know meanwhile, because we have received 2 questions only yet only.
Okay, fine. So the next case that I'm picking up is Luckin Coffee. This is again a case of 2020. Chinese coffee chain was found to have fabricated sales numbers, leading to a plummet in its stock price. The company's chief operating officer and other employees were involved in inflating sales figures by around $310 million. So what happened? So what is this basically all about, this case? So it is a beverage retailer in China, basically a coffee seller, mainly selling tea and coffee. After establishing in 2017 and or 2018, they were able to establish 4,507 stores in following 2 years itself. Suddenly, they became largest coffee retailer in China, overshadowing its rival Starbucks. They got listed also in NASDAQ. So what are red flags? I'm not getting into the detail of it, but what are the red flags missed in this case? Because ultimately this company also, filed for bankruptcy, and, a lot of legal issues are going on, and a lot of their executives have been jailed. Number one, too rapid growth. As compared to its rival Starbucks, which has been doing a slow and steady job, suddenly in 2 years you overtake them. And that to a country as big as China, 4,500 stores. Not a joke. How is that possible? So if that is happening, what is it that is behind it? As internal auditors, we need to go back, again, look at the financial statements, again, look at the fundamentals, again, look at real cash generation, whether it's happening or not. Second, too good to be true financial performance. How is it that Starbucks was the profit of Starbucks, or sorry, not the profit, but the gross profit of Starbucks was lower than this company? And at the end of the net profits of this company, they were always in losses during this period of 2 to 3 years. How is it that you are growing so fast? How is it that your financial performance in terms of revenue and GP and everything is good, but you do not earn profit? Then another thing is that data discrepancies were missed, like, average indicators per store revenue as compared to the other data indicators. There are a lot of data indicators which were showing a picture which was not true, but someone ignored it. As internal auditors, do we go back to the companies which we are serving to look at the key performance indicators, looking at the financial statements, looking at the ratio analysis, looking at, whether I'm analyzing the data in such a way that such a fraud, such a inflation, such a too good to be true financial performance is not shown in the companies where I am serving, whether as an employee or as a consultant. This company's employees, what this company does, and this was a fraud by the management of the company actually, they encourage their employees' family, their friends, their corporate linkage to purchase certain coupons on the app of this company. And the same coupons were then redeemed against fake orders. So there is actually no sales that is happening. Only coupon redemption is happening. And out of that, some kickback was being given to the employees. So sales figures were getting inflated. Everything was happening through app. So it will give a very, good feeling, fake feeling of, okay, everything is through app. It must be sorted, right? Everything is in black and white. But at the end of the day, at the back of it, it was all manipulated. The company returned funds to the funding companies through bank transfer, fabricated expenditure. Why can't this kind of thing be stopped? Having proper internal control around bank transfers. We have already been speaking about segregation of duties. We have, for ages, we have been talking about the genuineness of the payment requests for ages. Still, in 2020, someone missed it. So we are not learning from the past. Vendors did not provide any services, still we are paying them. How is that possible? As internal auditor, do we look at our company's process that whether there is even 1% possibility of any vendor not giving a service and still getting paid, mostly through a non-purchase order route. How is it that fabricated costs can be booked? Now in India, it is getting more and more difficult because of the GST and because of the government systems itself, because a lot of invoices are GST invoices. So you can't really fabricate those costs. Still, as internal auditors, what are we doing? So friends, the key message which I'm trying to give here is that all of these red flags, even if the fraud is different, the company is different, the area is different, but the red flags are all the same. We all know these red flags. If we keep tab on these red flags, if we keep tab on these data discrepancies, the possibility of fraud will go down. Someone asked about, any fraud that has happened in India. So very recent one, few days back, and it was very interesting and very basic fraud. Delhi man has cheated the employer of rupees 4 crores, puts wife on payroll for 10 years. How is that possible? It's a private recruitment company in Delhi. Finance manager has done this. There are only 3 officers in the payroll process. One is director HR, one is CHRO, and one is finance manager. Finance manager was the only interface with the outside payroll vendor and other departments. So what he used to do, he will get a correct file from the HR department. He will simply add one more line in the payment file, give this file to the bank. Bank will obey it because he has made sure that he will give that file to the payroll vendor also. So in the payroll vendor records, that is correct. In the bank record, that is correct. Both the files are matching, and ultimately excess payment was regularly happening for 10 years. And because for 10 years he has made only 4 crore, that means he was smart enough to keep the amount so low that it doesn't get identified. But where it got caught? He purchased properties in Delhi, Jaipur, Odisha. So someone complained that this guy is definitely earning more than what he is supposed to earn. And then an internal investigation happened and, he got caught. But what I'm trying to say, what is the key learning from us for internal auditors? The key learning is, again, the basics. Why there is no segregation of duty in the person who is dealing with the payroll vendor, in the person who is dealing with accounts, and in the person who is dealing with the other departments and the bank. There has to be a segregation. Otherwise, this fraud would not have been possible if segregation was there. First thing. Secondly, it is good that someone noticed and someone complained against him. But how much effort as internal auditor we can check how much efforts a company is doing in advertising, in making people aware about the whistleblower process, about the vigil mechanism process. Again, back to basics. So, friends, these are only some examples, but and the key message that I'm trying to give, we have not been learning from the past. If we learn from the past, if we learn from all these cases, these are all, I have not brought anything new here. This is all in public domain. If we simply put in any Google or any other search engine that name of the fraud and put the keyword as explained, you will get so many articles which will explain how a fraud happened, how it was done, what were the red flags missed. Everything is there. When a fraud comes, we usually get so many WhatsApp messages will come, so many things will be there in the news, but we will never get to the bottom of how it was done. Because at that time, when the news is so hot, that information is not available. Later on, what happens? Someone will publish this information after 4 months. By that time, we have already lost interest. But what as internal auditors, what I personally do, and I can recommend it to others, is that I keep on noting the name of the frauds or the companies, where the fraud is happening. And later on, after 3 to 4 months, I'll go back and I will recheck whether the modus operandi has been published by someone or not. And then we'll go back and check in our own company whether some of those red flags are there. And if they are there, we try to correct them to the best extent possible. Of course, internal auditor do not have the full authority to do anything, but you can definitely do certain things about it. So friends, Mohit, I am getting into the next section of my presentation now. If there are any questions, I would like to answer it here. Otherwise, I'll move on.
Sir, please proceed. Sir, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Now, my next section is talking about, the latest category of frauds or the more focused frauds. And I will straight away jump to the first category, false regulatory findings. Now, friends, and I have asked this on multiple forums now. We are internal auditors. And the funny part is we are very, very focused on internal controls, but we are never focused on the controls on the information that is being filed. How many of our companies have the risk control matrices, have the processes which are declaring specific maker-checker controls on anything that is filed with the regulators? Any certificate that is being given to a customer, any declaration that is being given to regulator or to the customer side, there will be very few because we trust. And the focus has always been internal processes. This is some information going somewhere. The person who is signing it should own it. But my friends, most of the regulatory frauds, which I showed at the beginning of the presentation itself, which threaten the existence of the company, are being done based on the false information being filed with the regulators. So therefore, the key message I wanted to give is that the maker, checker, approver, signatory, audit trails, all of these things must be documented in our SOPs, in our risk control matrices. And if there are any existing non-compliances which need reporting by law, that authority should also be clarified within our processes. One more red flag, if you would see, if people are debating within your organization that who should sign this certificate, that itself shows that there is a problem. Because someone doesn't want to sign means there is a potential problem. So get into it. And if there is a visible financial gains possibility, that also is another red flag. So have an SOP, have internal control, have RAC metrics around this regulatory or customer filing or certificate or declaration is what I wanted to say as a key message. Forgery of electronic documents. Can an Outlook email be edited? The answer is yes. Everyone will say, yes, sir, we can forward an Outlook email, and while forwarding, we can definitely edit it. But what if I tell you that without forwarding, I can edit it? Mohit, do you agree with me? Can an Outlook email be edited without forwarding? Mohit, are you there? Okay, I think we've lost him. Yeah, Mohit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm asking you, what is your view? Can an Outlook email be edited without forwarding?
I think, sir, yes.
Okay. So you are one of the smart ones. But what does our audience says? Any response there?
Sir, let's wait. I have to own the chat box. Just give me 1 minute, sir.
Okay.
All the worthy audience are requested to please answer the question through the chat box that what's your opinion?
Okay.
Sir, we haven't received the opinion of the audience yet, sir.
Okay, no problem. So in this,
One opinion is there from the Rajendra Soni. It says no.
okay, I'll prove him wrong. But not that I'm happy about it. Okay, so
Sir, meanwhile, I would like to share the two questions as well.
uh-huh.
Rajendra Soni, sir, is asking, are internal auditors allowed to report possible instances of fraud directly to management if data access is restricted? Prasoon Prusti, our honorable respected member, is asking one question. Let's say internal auditors see some red flags and not allowed to do a detailed audit, which could be scope limitations or data limitations. Number one question he has asked. Meanwhile, second question he has asked in the continuous way. How internal auditor report this without getting confirmed of the fraud?
This is not clear. Can you come again?
Let's say internal auditor sees some red flags and not allowed to do a detailed audit, which could be the scope limitations or data limitations.
Okay.
Continuously is asking the next question. Then how internal auditor report this without getting confirmed of the fraud? Sir, ये second clear नहीं हो रहा है. First
No,
is
it's clear. I'll answer it.
Okay.
You go to the next one.
Sir, some of the audience have answered the question that you have asked. Can Outlook mail can be edited? Prasoon Prasti say no. Satish Raj Pahari from Chennai say yes. Outlook mail can be edited without forwarding. Vedyanathan J is saying yes, sir. And Juhi Virmani says not sure how it will be edited unless it is either forwarded or converted in PDF. Further, the attachment can be edited is what I am aware of.
Okay.
Nishi State is saying email can be modified, but original message can be retrieved from its property. Is from New Delhi. Nipun Chandrakant Makwana is saying yes, Outlook can be edited. Outlook mails can be edited. Lokesh Bajaj is saying yes, can edit by go to action tab. That's all about it, sir. Thank you.
Yes, can edit what?
Can edit by go to action tabs.
Okay. So he has definitely done some research. Now, friends, yes, the answer is yes, and Outlook email can be edited, unfortunately. What I'm showing you in front of your screen right now is an email that I personally got from one of my colleagues. There was an attachment of Excel. You can see certain text that is written. This is the original email that I got. And definitely I have masked the sender just for confidentiality purposes. Now I will show you what did I do with it. I added one more attachment to the same email. Text I kept same, but I could have easily changed the text also. I could have removed all the attachments also. It is possible. If you simply go to Outlook, go there and say edit. It will ask you edit email. You go to edit email. It will allow you to edit an email which you have received or which you have sent without forwarding or without re-receiving. Unfortunately, yes. This is a lacuna in Outlook. And my friends, a big fraud has recently happened in one of the prominent multinational companies using this lacuna of the Outlook. So now you can imagine, I have an email from my CEO saying not approved, but I can easily change it to approved. I can easily attach an attachment. I can change anything. It is just like, you have an approval file, physical file, and you can change the papers there. It is as good as that. So now, friends, are we aware about this? Half of us were not aware. The people who are aware, what have they done about it? Have you gone back to your organization? Have you gone back to check with your respective IT department how to close this lacuna? Because this is a big fraud risk that can be done. Look at, I'm sure there are people from banking industry, a lot of their approvals happen on so regular basis on emails only. Most of that, in fact. So if the emails become unreliable, how will they function? So how many of us have gone back after identifying this? And this question is for those 50% who already know that this is possible, to do something about it. Well, when I found it, I went back to my organization. I found it. I escalated to the highest level possible. And now, with the global policies or the IT policies in place, in my organization, this functionality is disabled. It is possible to disable it, but by default, it is enabled. So I'm suggesting to all of you, please go back to your organization, try if it is possible to do, please get this functionality removed or blocked through using your IT department. Right? I'll go to the next one. See, the key messages that do not rely on email printouts. Forwarded emails unless sure for authenticity. If you have a doubt, you can call the sender in case of doubt and can check for Outlook email edit history also, ask for reasons and changes also, but there can be certain genuine reasons also. So why I'm recommending to block this editing possibility rather than just leave it and we can check it anytime, because number one, people will not have the habit of checking it, and number two, while the Outlook email will tell us the edit, okay, some editing has happened, but even if I move a particular email from original email only from inbox or from sendbox to any other folder also, it will still say the email has been edited. So you can't really differentiate between what is the genuine email and what is the really edited email. And therefore, it is always advisable to just block this possibility using your IT department. So this is the key message I wanted to give. I'll move forward. Now talking about digital signatures and electronic signatures. Friends, any of you would like to differentiate between what is a digital signature and what is an electronic signature? Mohiji, if you get any comment, please let me know. What is the difference between a digital signature and electronic signature? And this differentiation has been there for many years now. It's not a new thing. No answers? No problem. So the difference between digital signature and electronic signature is digital signature is the signatures are given after your proper KYC checks by a certifying authority. Electronic signatures can be electronic signatures. It can be using your Adobe Acrobat software. It can be using any software, or in fact, if I simply sign and I put the image of those signatures into a document, that is also electronic signature as per law. One of the key red flags that has been observed in various organizations these days is there is no clear SOP to deal with e-signature and digital signature process and authority for their issuance. Because this is something which has not been so robustly used in the past, but now it is being robustly used. Process of removing access during employee separation process has not been observed to be robust. The agencies which are supporting the company process are not clear. There are no guidelines to keep digital signature and electronic signatures secure and protected. The documents which are allowed to be signed digitally, to be signed electronically are not clearly defined by the organization. And on top of it, the USB enablement risks are also there, because a lot of digital signatures will work only through a USB. And depending upon organization IT security profile, a lot of people will get that access. Once they get this access, data leakage possibilities also arise. Based on my experience, these kind of risks have not been mitigated yet. And these need to be taken care by having a proper standard operating procedure in consultation with your legal department as well as your IT department. And internal auditors need to go and talk to the relevant people, even if it is not part of your audit. But please go and talk to people and tell them this is a risk. Include this as part of your audit plan for the next year. And internal controls on asset vulnerable to forgery by digital signature and electronic signature should also be identified. I'll go next. There is a live case. It was a March 2022 case in Faridabad. 10 people have been arrested for multi-crore export licenses scam. Now, how this was done? This was done using a fake digital signature of the director of Shahi Exports Private Limited, which is a very prominent company, and allegedly 154 duty licenses worth 27 crore, which the company has received as rebate for exports done by us, were transferred to a bogus company created in the name of the accused. Accused used to forge the document in the name of director or proprietor, and through those documents, they used to create a digital signature certificate. So forgery of digital signature certificate is already happening. Therefore, again, this is clearly highlighting that it is not a theoretical or a hypothetical risk anymore. Things are happening. Frauds are already happening. So therefore, identify the assets that are vulnerable to online frauds, design additional checks and controls, have a clear SOP created by your legal counsel. I'll go next. Cyber frauds. Industrial automation to industrial autonomy, which is a trademark of my company, is latest trend in manufacturing. Cloud-based asset health indicator solutions are being implemented in operation technology and information technology integration. So friends, first of all, I would like to explain what is the difference between operation technology and information technology. Information technology, we are all aware. Operation technology is the technology which is used to automate the manufacturing plants. So, as I was mentioning at the beginning of my presentation also, that there is an integration that is happening now. The technology that they use to operate the manufacturing plant using the decision control systems, using the analyzers, using the test and measurement devices, using the flow meters, transmitters, etc., and the technology of IT integration, using the cloud computing, using the softwares, using the various dashboards, using the mobile apps, that is now merging, because the senior management or the key stakeholders of these organizations, even the customers, they want the information in real-time basis on their mobile. They want to regulate the operations of an oil refinery sitting on the mobile, just looking at the mobile. So once you are going to integrate this data into cloud, definitely it is going to bring in the efficiency and ease of operation, but at the same time, it brings a lot of cyber security fraud risks. And this is what I'm trying to share. But the first part is that, first of all, before even trying to get into how to audit it or how to mitigate the fraud risk in this, first of all, we need to understand it. So let's try to understand what it is all about. On the customer side, they want to become a data-driven company because 80% of the effort in data gathering has been going on, generally speaking. And then a lot of customers want to increase the plant visibility also, because there are too many silo systems and data, and then how the decision making will happen. Therefore, digital transformation is happening, and failure pattern increases with age or use. But how do you prevent those failures? Because you don't get the data point. So what are the solutions? As I was mentioning earlier, silo systems were there: system A, system B, system C, separate systems in the manufacturing plants. Now all systems are integrated into the cloud, and information, data, MIS, data analytic reports, using AI and ML and other tools, they are all being given to the management. How does it help? It helps in enhanced productivity, increasing productivity, increasing efficiency, and shorten the time to the market, flexibility, agility. and simplicity. These are the business reasons why companies are going for this kind of OT and IT integration. So therefore, business environment is changing. So definitely that the ways of doing business are also changing, and definitely internal auditors need to understand how it works and work out the risk from cybersecurity and accuracy point of view. So friends, now if I am working for a company which is maybe listed company, and I have to report how many carbon emissions I have done, what are the trends, how much CO2 emission I have done, how much of various GHG or ESG factors I have been able to track, which is the latest trend under BRSR, which have also been mandated by SEBI now in India, and internationally there are so many other frameworks based on which multinational companies are reporting their ESG related data points. Let's assume that we are also one of the company, your company is also one of the companies which have to declare that. Then definitely you have to use some of these equipments, some of these operation technology to come out with the data measurements which have to be accurate. If any of you remember the emission gate issue that happened in Volkswagen, so I'm talking about similar issue. The companies are now required by regulators to declare to the world how much emissions are happening in the plants. Now, in such a scenario, the accuracy of those data that is being provided has to be checked from time to time. Can, as internal auditors, we check that? Are we equipped to check that? First of all, we need to question ourselves. Do we have the right level of skill set within our teams who can help the finance professional, who are mostly the internal auditors, to check all this and then apply some common sense, some processes, some SOPs to take care of this kind of reporting that is happening. And then eventually it comes back to maker checker. It comes back to, true reporting. It comes back to how to protect against these frauds or manipulations by the company or against the company. Friends, these are all some examples. I'll not get into the details. Some KPIs. So what we need to do, cyber vulnerabilities are not being analyzed continuously. What internal auditors have been doing recently, for last 3-4 years, they have been doing, a cyber risk assessment of a one particular application or a one particular key area or one particular network area, and then forget about it. No, cyber security is a regular topic. It's a daily topic. It's a minute by minute topic. So how, as internal auditors, are we sure that even if we are not doing an internal audit, someone else is regularly monitoring it? Are there processes in place? Are the SOPs in place to check these vulnerabilities are taken care? All the patch management systems are in place. They are happening. Someone is regularly checking it. And there is no possibility of any compromise happening anywhere. It is easier said than done. But as internal auditors, we need to go back to our organization and ask it, what are the processes? Risk of application controls and modification going unnoticed. Do we have a SDLC cycle? Now, someone asked a question about AI/ML, how they can help internal audit. See, AI/ML, I will briefly explain. The difference between data analytics and AI/ML is only one basic difference, and I am trying to explain it in a very layman's language. AI is artificial intelligence. ML is machine learning. Whatever we were doing data analytics so far using the various tools of the past, what we were doing, we were looking at the data, we were looking at our processes, and we were defining certain queries. We were defining certain logics. We were defining certain reports which are useful for us to identify certain gaps, which we used to call data analytics. If we are doing it through a tool, then we used to call it data analytics. If we are doing in Excel, it is data analysis. Now, what is artificial intelligence tools? What this artificial intelligence tool will do is, it will have two components. One is structured learning, which continues to be our learning, which we give to this tool, to this algorithm. But looking at our logic and looking at the data, it will also come out with some more potential red flags or potential criteria based on which it will throw certain positives. And then as a trainer to this tool, as internal auditors or as whoever is the user of this tool, we need to tell, okay, this was a false positive, this is a true positive. Over a period of time, this algorithm, this tool gets trained, and now it gives you much more accurate results than
जी sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible? Hello. Yes, sir is there. ऐड कीजिए सर को ऐड कीजिए हाँ प्लीज आस्क हिम टू ज्वाइन मैम प्लीज We are apologize for the inconvenience between the session. There is some technical glitches on the speaker's side. So we are requested to please hold the hold on for 2 minutes until he is going to join the session. We are requested to the audience to please take the 2 to 3 minutes a tea break, a short break. Meanwhile, our eminent faculty is going to join the session.
this interruption. I'll just quickly present my slide. So, friends, I was saying that the So what I was saying that the entire way of doing things is changing, and the cyber vulnerabilities need to be analyzed by internal auditors. And risk of these application controls, I was explaining AI and ML. So what I was explaining was that AI ML is nothing but a one step further from what we used to do from in data analytics. In AI ML, the algorithm will also give us some more suggestions, some more logics, which we had not already fed into it as part of structured learning. So as internal auditor, as someone had asked a very pertinent question, how useful AI ML tools are for internal auditors, they are very much useful, especially where the data points could change and keep changing, and they could come up with some very interesting and very new insights, which may not be possible for us to analyze on a regular basis. Now, one of the things which happens is that you have to define how big the data that it will analyze. So because, for example, I was talking about travel expenses. So in travel expenses, if you have to go back till 1 year, so it will take that much of more processing. So you have to invest that much of more. The logic is one thing, but processing power, that much of hardware, that much of processing power has also to be deployed, and that much of time it will take to give out the result on a regular basis. So this is always a decision to be made, and definitely internal auditors in many organizations are getting involved into this now, where how much, what should be the cutoff, in how much period we will allow the artificial intelligence to analyze the data, and so on. Friends, going forward, bots, the RPA, they have been helping in recording of data. There are so many organizations, even the very big organizations, most of them do not have end-to-end SAP. It may be coming as a surprise to some, but this is a fact. Even the best of the manufacturing companies in India do not have end-to-end SAP. They still have some boutique applications, some boutique IT systems, some legacy systems, which still feed in that information into the ultimate SAP or Oracle for that matter. So these bots have come out as a very economical and efficient way of transferring that data from these local applications to the main SAP. So what are the controls around that? Whether a bot could be misused, because once a person is doing copy paste from one place to another, still okay. You can still hold that person responsible. But what about a bot marks a wrong information, and which results into fraudulent activity, fraudulent revenue, fraudulent payments, etc. So as internal auditors, we must analyze what are the kind of robotics process automation that is happening in the organizations that we are serving, whether as a consultant or whether as an auditor, and establish or satisfy ourselves that, ultimately there is good control about any changes being made to this, and there is a proper testing that has been done, which will ensure that it will work properly and not result into a fraud. For plant operations, having a dedicated security operations center is recommended. And as internal auditor, we need to be aware about the conceptual and principles on this and how the security designs are being made. I'll skip this. Last but not the least, accounting frauds. We started with accounting frauds, and again on accounting frauds, my key message on this slide, which I keep telling at multiple forums, again I'm saying, is that as internal auditors, it is our responsibility to analyze financial statements. It is our responsibility to do ratio analysis. It is not only the responsibility of statutory auditor. Some of the examples, some of these ratio analysis, unique ones I have tried to give here as an example. You could use it. But I strongly believe that as internal auditors, we must be looking at accounting frauds very deeply by analyzing the financial statements. On how we can analyze the financial statement? By using some of these ratios, by using some of these performance metrics. And if you find something which is not as per the usual trend of the industry, as per usual trend of your own company, or which is something abrupt, please do not mince your words. Go and talk to the respective management company. So analyzing trial balance financial ratios is very important. And some of the accounting frauds further, I have given some examples. You can refer to it later on. Now, I will, this completes mostly my presentation, but now I would like to focus on some of the questions that were asked. So Mohit,
Still I haven't received any question for as a inquiry.
Yeah.
Sir, mostly of the public is asking your own story about fraud detection and solving that mystery. So
Okay.
please one case story, sir.
So yeah, I will come to that also.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry for interruption. Meanwhile, I request to the worthy audience, because the webinar timing is from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. and we are about to close within next 20 minutes. And our speaker is having some business, already scheduled for after 7 p.m. So you all are requested to please ask your query before 6:50 p.m. so that our speaker can answer all the queries that are asked by our audience. So please proceed for your case study, sir. Thank you, sir.
So I will, so Mohit, there are certain questions which you asked in the beginning, which have still not been answered. So I will start with that and then come to the story also. I think one of the question was how to start the evaluation in audit. So how to start the evaluation in audit is a very good question. Now, what I understand from this question is that a person who has asked wants to understand that how we can focus in such a way that we can find frauds. So friends, there are two legs to it. One is at the scoping level. When the audit planning is happening, first of all, as a basic principle, we should make sure that we have an adequate audit universe. I have written an article on this in Institute of Chartered Accountant newsletter. How the audit planning should happen, how the internal audit risk assessment should happen. It should happen, it should be done in such a detailed way that nothing is missed out. First of all, as part of your audit universe, so that you know this is your total pie, which you have to cover. After that, start putting risks to it based on your company's industry, based on your industry, based on your past experiences within the company and in the industry, based on any new regulations, based on any new developments, based on any benchmarking studies that keep happening, based on any new frauds that get identified, and identify those points, those things which are more relevant and more vulnerable. Because resources to every internal auditor is always limited. So focus more where there is high risk of fraud. Then once the scope has been decided, then as an audit staff or an audit manager, once you are there to perform a job, always have at the back of your mind the potential of fraud being done. Professional skepticism. Once you start doing your process walkthroughs, try to understand how the process is working end to end. A lot of internal auditors, a lot of them work for me also, they make a mistake that they do not understand the process end to end. They do not use the flow charting techniques. When I am sitting with an auditee, and if I am doing an audit, I will take my pen and paper and I will start drawing a flow chart, which will tell me automatically during the discussion itself if there is any leg of the process which I have missed. So first of all, it helps in improving the understanding of the process, how they are doing things. At the same time, it helps in identification of fraud risks also. Even during that, not during that time, but later on, if you look at the same flow chart and try to think how a fraud can be perpetrated in that same process, it will be much easier for you to find out. And I am not saying make a, jazzy flow charts in presentation or use a Vizy software and all that. No, I am saying when you are doing a process walkthrough, please start making a process flow chart there itself in front of the auditee. Get it vetted from the auditee as a draft. Show it to the auditee. Have I drawn it properly or not? What are the stage gates? While making the flow chart itself, you will understand the key stage gates or the key controls there itself. And that is where you will automatically come to know where to focus and where the fraud can happen. So this is my answer to how to start evaluating the fraud risk in an audit. Secondly, in addition to that, we should keep, as I already mentioned, we should keep reading about these audits. Use the keyword called explained. Wirecard fraud explained. This fraud explained. Satyam fraud explained. Write that in the Google. You will get so much of material. Identify the modus operandi. Identify how it was, what are the red flags which were missed in those cases, and then look at the audit that you are doing, whether they are relevant to you or not. I think with this much basic principle, we will be able to do a lot. Now, talking about, as Mohit, you mentioned about what I have done as a lot of information, which we do as professionals in the organizations. It is confidential, but definitely I can talk about some frauds which I have done investigation myself in the past. Many years ago, what I've done, I can share some of those experiences. Friends, but I will give you examples where the frauds were found as part of internal and not as part of forensic audits, because that is different, right? As part of internal audit, one of the very good example that I have observed, or maybe two examples. One, where the team was doing an internal audit of an automobile company. The process under review was the event management process. So there will be an annual event management process, annual event that will happen, which is a big expense. A lot of big celebrity singers will come. It is a huge event in a big ground, and you will have a lot of celebration and expense around that. As part of the approval document of that particular event, the quotations are invited as usual. 3 quotations are invited. All of them are in place, and the lowest bidder has been selected as per the process. Everything seems to be fine. But then the audit team member who was working with me, he got suspicious about one thing. The letterhead, which was attached as a quotation, looked a little unprofessional or, a little shady. So when he discussed with me, I asked him to give a call on the number which was given on that letterhead. It started with as simple as that. Once the call was given, it came out that this letterhead, this quotation itself was fake. Then the address which was given, that was visited by the team, and there was nothing of that enterprise or that sort of thing there. It was a residential complex, and there in one place it was an empty plot. So that out of 3 quotations, 2 quotations were fake. Based on the professional skepticism or curiosity of the audit staff, it came to light of the management, and we found the fraud, that the quotations were fake and there was vendor favoritism had happened. This is a very simple example I'm giving. There is more complicated example I will give now. There was an internal audit case where a bank statement had been forged by the company, by the staff of the company, which was giving data to the internal auditor. The internal auditor kept asking time and again, please arrange a soft copy from the bank, please arrange a soft copy from the bank. But auditee was never obliging. Auditee sent some email to bank, and which he knew that bank is never going to reply on email unless and until the letterhead request is given to the bank. In such scenario, internal auditor got suspicious about why this person is hiding. So he extended his audit checks in normal way. He would have not checked 100% of those line items of the bank statement, which was a 30-page bank statement. But in order to be thorough, because there was clearly a red flag, the audit staff went on to check the line items one by one for 30 pages, physical bank statement, forged bank statement that was given. When the running balance was being calculated, they found some 7 to 8 transactions which have been completely deleted from the bank statement. And because of that, the running balance did not match. Now, no one will imagine to do this kind of a check in an internal audit. And I would also not recommend to do this. But in the scenario where there is non-cooperation, where there is clear kind of a bad feeling from the auditee side, and where auditee is not cooperating with the auditor, you have to change your extensiveness of your internal audit checks. And this way we found the fraud, we found the forgery. Later on, a forensic investigation happened. We found where the payments had gone. We found how the payment had been misused and personal benefiting had happened. This is another example, my friends, where internal auditors have found. There is one more example I can talk about. Mohit, I will finish this and then I'll come to you. There is one more example in a another very big multinational company, where there used to be a process where the physical hard copy documents were used for getting the signature of the senior management. Some of the signature are happening on the top, some of the signature are happening at the bottom. In such scenario, when the internal audit was happening, by chance, I would say, but still the credit must go to the internal audit. The samples that were selected, in the samples, auditors saw that the image or that hard copy document, which was there in the first one, and the second one, which he was auditing, they looked very similar. The signatures looked very similar. The dates were different, the contents were different, but the signatures on the top and on the bottom looked very similar. So internal auditor was, because of his thoroughness in the process of these approvals, he was already aware that before signing off these physical papers in the company, there was a clear process where the secretary of the CFO was noting down all the hard copy documents signed by the CFO, for example. He simply picked up the paper because he had a doubt, and he went to the executive assistant of the CFO to check whether this particular approval document number was present in the tracker. And it was found that this was not present in the tracker. This was a forged document. And through this vigilance and proper understanding of the process of the auditor, we were able to unearth a fraud of more than 3 crore rupees in that organization. So these are some examples, friends. Mohit, you wanted to say something?
Sir, we have received the query. There is a Shobha Verma is asking the query, I remember. If an internal auditor, we become so suspicious about almost everything, then we would actually end up doing forensic audit rather than internal audit. What's your thought on this, sir?
That is not, because I work on both sides. Therefore, I will not agree to that notion. Although with due respect, I do agree to some extent the concern. While I am not saying that we should get suspicious about everything, please try to understand. Let me rephrase what I have said. What I'm saying, friends, is when we are doing the process walkthrough, we need to understand the process end to end, how they are doing their job properly, how they are doing the job. The biggest mistake internal auditors do, we do not understand how they are doing the job end to end, and we start analyzing data, we start looking at documents. Every company, every industry, every department, every location of a company could have a different process. So look at the process first. Within that process, once you look at the process, then try to find out if someone has to go wrong, if someone has to abuse the process, how it can be done, where the possibility. So I am talking about doing a fraud risk assessment rather than putting a distrust on the people. That is number one, which I told. And number two, what I told is, where there is a doubt, do not overlook it. If everything is normal, if I ask a bank statement and I get a bank statement without any problems, if the environment of dealing with the audit is all okay, I will not mind going 100% checking of the bank statement running balances. So it depends upon the situation. It depends on the understanding of the process. I am not saying suspect everyone. I am saying we must respect, we must trust the people unless and until they give a reason for us not to believe them. But where they give us a reason not to believe them, do not believe them. Do not overlook. Do not justify to yourself that this is, I'm only doing an internal audit, I'm not doing a forensic audit. Let me, just complete my job and go forward. This is the only change point I'm saying. I hope she agrees with me. If she doesn't agree with me, I'll be happy to answer again.
Next question is Prasan Ruste. You are requested, an honorable respected member, to please mention your question again. It may be technical glitches, maybe it overlap from here. Prasan Ruste, please, you are requested to mention your question again. Juhi Virwani is asking, this is not a question for Raval sir, how the CPRs will be credited. Actually, CPR is you can credit it reclaim from the cpici.org by mentioning in the unstructured CPR. It is not a structured CPR. You can claim unstructured CPR by logging with your credential and at www.cpici.org. Thank you, Juhi ji. Sir, Chirag. Okay, Chirag, the session will be available on our website by using the webcast website on a webcast series. आप इंटरनल स्टैंडर्ड कमेटी की बोर्ड में जाकर आप देख सकते हैं. You will find the session, recording session, not only of this session, but the way back, the long session that the internal board has been conducted. You may view all the lectures and all the webinars from there. Thank you. Chirag Garg is again asking, digital signature is using token/key. Electronic signature is like PDF sign. Sir, have you got the question that Chirag is asking? Can you answer this, Plus?
Yeah, he is correct. He is correct. He is basically explaining what I asked earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question.
Mohit, I had noted down initially. There were two very important questions which I would definitely like
Sir,
to.
Can I ask you the two more questions so that you can answer it with the all the questions? Maybe, sir, it is same as usual, so you can answer it combined with.
Okay.
The next question is asking by the Shobha Verma member. Do you think implementation of AI in internal audit will help us and possibilities of fraud will reduce to some extent? Have you noted, sir? I think this is the same question I've been asked by one member as well by using the AI.
Anything
The
else?
next question is Sachin Punjani. Sachin Punjani is our member. He is asking one question. If a SaaS based company is already getting its SOC 1, SOC 2 and IOC 27001, ISO 27701 audit done by an independent audit firm, what kind of value addition be done by an internal audit team on cybersecurity?
I got the question.
Okay, sir. There is one question is pending from the Prasan sir. You are requested to please mention your question again so that can be answered on our time. Because we are running with the time, it's already 6:55 and we have to wind up at least at 7 p.m. So you are requested to please mention your query within the time. Sir, please proceed for your queries, sir.
So I think the questions that I noted at the beginning, mostly they were answered except few, so which I would like to answer first. One of the question was if the internal auditor, whether the internal auditor is allowed to report to management. Friends, I don't understand the background of this question. As per section 138, the appointment of internal auditor is done by board of directors of the company. You cannot be more empowered than this. So where is the question of not allowed to report to management? Yes, there can be practical situations where you are under pressure not to report to the management. Therefore, in those situations, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has given you standards on internal auditing guidance, which clearly says that wherever a member, although it's not mandatory, it's a recommendatory standards, but if a company adopts these standards in your audit committee or in your board, they become mandatory to your company. Then in that case, the standards are recommending if a member, if an internal auditor is not, wherever he is not following or he is not able to follow a particular standard, you can report it through your internal audit reports. So the question of whether internal auditor is allowed to report to management, internal auditor is definitely reporting to management only. Who is appointing us? It is the management, it is the board. So if board is appointing me, I can definitely go and report to the board. In fact, this is my duty. And as per Rule 13 of the Company Accounts and Auditor Rule, it clearly says that the methodology of scope, working of internal audit function of a company has to be proposed by the internal auditor, so appointed, and it has to be ultimately finalized by the audit committee and by the board. So if we are methodical enough at the time of our appointment, if we have made a very good internal audit manual or internal audit charter, which is empowering us to do certain things in a certain way, which is in line with the standards of internal auditing, which is in line with the international standards, for example, which authorize internal auditor to access information, to do audits and to report audit findings in a certain way, then I think this kind of questions will not arise. Now, second question, Mohit, was how to deal with scope limitation and how internal audit can report it and how to deal with data limitation.
One more question have been asked by Prasanth sir. That would be the last question, I think so. The question is, if internal auditor sees some red flags but not able to detailed audit due to scope limitation or data limitation, in this situation, how internal audit report this without getting confirmed about the fraud?
Correct. So there are two aspects to it. If I am an audit staff or I'm an audit manager, I am not a chief audit executive, my duty is to report this to the chief audit executive, and that is where it ends. But if I am myself a head of audit or I'm myself a chief audit executive reporting to the board or to the audit committee, then once this kind of thing comes to my knowledge, as per the standards on internal audit, I have to report it to the next management to whom I report to. I have to report after analyzing certain additional information, making my own risk assessment, and then I have to report it. It cannot be said, but that particular assignment can be closed by putting in the internal audit report clearly that this particular aspect has not been covered, or this was the data limitation. We were not provided this data. That must be dealt with in audit limitation. In fact, that should be included in your audit committee slides also. Audit limitation is the biggest observation. I always say this. Audit limitation is the biggest observation because you are telling the audit committee, I was not allowed to audit this. They will automatically get worried about this. So now last question, which Mohit was asked again about AI and ML in terms of how it can be used. And I think one more question was related to SaaS. So I will answer those questions. So AI ML, just like any other data in the past, data analysis has helped us in fraud mitigation. Just like data analytics has helped us. Same way AI ML is also going to help us. AI ML is nothing but automation of certain tasks. Earlier, we were giving the structured input to the system, and it was giving us an output. Now the algorithms have structured input, plus they are intelligent. They are able to come up with new criteria and give us additional output. So definitely the efficiency of that is going to increase, and the possibility of unearthing of the fraud is going to increase, but it is not nothing more than that. So what I'm trying to say is, it is just like any one additional or one important enhancement in the capabilities of not only the audit department, but the entire organization. I mean, before audit department implementing AML, the other departments implement it and they get benefited by it. Now, coming to the last question, I think, which was related to if a company is SaaS-based, SOC1, SOC2, ISO 27001, what is the value addition of internal audit? I think the question is not more about internal audit. The question is assurance map. My friends, I have written an article in, again, an ICA newsletter about assurance map, and it can be shared or it can be found on my LinkedIn page also. Basically, in any company, the board of directors and audit committee are responsible for the governance. And they are the ones who decide who will give assurance on which topic. And a lot of companies have duplicate assurance givers to the board. But ideal way is, and this is a good practice only, it's not a mandatory thing, that as an organization, we should develop an assurance map. List down all the topics of assurance that need to go to board, need to go to the audit committee, and list down who is going to do it. There could be some boards, some audit committees which want double assurance. They want it from internal audit also. They want it from ISO 27001 also, auditor also. In other companies, they will be satisfied with ISO 27001 only. So it is not the decision to be taken by internal auditor. It is decision to be taken in consultation with the management. Because Rule 13 very clearly says methodology and scope has to be done in consultation with the audit committee or the board of the company. But at the same time, I feel very strongly that internal auditors can add value because it is an independent function. Getting a certificate on ISO 27001 is a different thing. And really mitigation of cyber security risk is another thing. I'm sure my friend who asked the question understands what I'm saying. With these words, I have concluded my deliberation. If there is any other question, I will be happy to answer. Otherwise, we can conclude.
Sir, just give me 1 minute.
Yes, Mohit.
Sir, okay, we have done with all the questions I've asked by our worthy members. And on behalf of my internal standard board of ICI, I would like to express my thanks to our eminent faculty of the day and speaker of the day, CA Naval Bajaj, sir. You have spent your valuable time for enlightening the views on the fraud prevention and correction, can say. And I would like to thanks to our worthy members, respected members of the session, those who have joined for their learning. I hope that would be the fruitful and giving the new sights about the topic covered today. And thanks to the back team, CA Arun sir, Aarti ma'am, and their one more the technical person is there, who is over there for the 2 hours into the session. And thanks to all of you. Have a good evening, great evening. Thank you. Goodbye to all of you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Jai ICI. Thank you, sir.
Namaste.